Why did they actually kill Jesus?
Okay, well, first of all, we don't really know they killed Jesus because if you look at the Islamic tradition, there is Jesus. Jesus is the penultimate prophet. Muhammad is the ultimate prophet. And if you look at the Quran, if you look at the Islamic tradition, Jesus never died. He was never crucified. He just died peacefully and he went up to heaven. Because the idea is that if you're a messenger of God, it doesn't really matter if you die or not. What matters is, are you able to deliver the message properly? And Jesus was able to do that. So Jesus is revered in the Islamic tradition. And there are different sects of Christianity. For example, the Gnostics, who don't really care and don't really even talk about his death because for them, death is rebirth, death is release. This planet that we're on is hell on earth. We're here to enlighten others. But once we finish our job, then we return home to wherever we came from. And so death is just release. It's rebirth. It doesn't really matter if you die. So there are people who don't believe that Jesus died, and there are people who believe it didn't really matter how he died. But obviously, the story of the crucifixion is something that compels people and which drives people into this tremendous emotional angst. You have a lot of war started over this issue, right? So, um, my understanding is that if you look at the historical evidence, Jesus was probably crucified by the Romans because why would you make this up? And he was probably crucified because he was a threat to the status quo, meaning that he pissed off both the Roman authorities as well as the Jewish authorities. And I think that he was pissing everyone off because he was providing some truth that spoke to people intuitively, but which went against the natural order.
And what was that truth?
I personally believe that he was a religious genius who had an intimate connection with the divine and who believed something along the lines of Gnosticism, Hermetic philosophy. And the evidence for that is the Gospel of Thomas, which is probably the earliest record of his sayings. And people believe, some people believe, not everyone, but some people believe it actually precedes the Gospel of Mark, which was about 70. And if you just read the Gospel of Thomas, I think it actually aligns pretty closely with what we know to be authentic sayings from the other Gospels, including Mark and Matthew. And if you read the Gospel of Thomas, it's clearly a Gnostic worldview. It's clearly believed that we're all divine sparks and we're here to experience the world for what it is, to sort of suffer into pain in order to seek enlightenment. But we have to remember our true aspects if we are to truly seek knowledge and enlightenment. Otherwise, we become slaves to the system. Otherwise, we're too focused on material acquisitions. Otherwise, we're too focused on making money. And this was a direct threat to the system because this would overturn the status quo, right? The Roman society is a very strict hierarchy. And to say that the person with all the money has no authority over me, the person with all the power has no authority over me because I'm a divine soul, that could be very upsetting. So we also know that Jesus spent a lot of time with slaves and the oppressed. Well, this is a problem because a slave is considered economic property. So if you tell a slave, hey man, you're a divine soul, you shouldn't be a slave, and the slave either decides to quit or runs away, that's economic damage. And at that time in history, if you were to insult someone, you might get hit at. But if you actually steal from someone, they killed you, right? Because remember the crucifixion. There were 3 people who were crucified: Jesus and 2 thieves, right? So I think that Jesus, with his message, was liberating slaves psychologically and emotionally, and giving tremendous comfort to them. But this made them less productive, in which case, you're causing economic damage. You're destroying property. So he was considered basically a rebel.
You said